behind, but I'm just happy to be here. I had to get myself right. I haven't had any quiet time in like 3 weeks, 3 weeks now. And I actually had to stop and take some quiet time. And I spent some time with my people that, ain't physically here no more. Spent some time with them, listened to some music. Had to get my mind right because it's the road to 100 now. We're on the road to 100 and we gotta. I'm excited, y'all. I'm excited. Welcome in. Let me get Instagram going. Gotta ask you for clarity. There's gotta be one. There's one just a phase of infatuation. I understand. It reaches for me. Was gonna see like I was a man. Left my heart a lovely stranger. One way street headed for danger. Close my eyes but still can't fade her. She's been there for years. I've been hurt by someone lesser, even though I do know better. Spend my nights writing love letters, landed on deaf ears. So I ask, how can she be a simple friend? Oh, so meant for me. Is it a phase just passing by? Or could she be the missing pieces in my life? Gotta ask you for clarity. Ooh, I'm late. I am super duper uber late. But it's all good. I'm here. It's the road to 100, y'all. It's the road to 100. I'm going to give it a few more minutes, just a few more minutes, and then we will get right into it. Let me see. Let me get to sharing. I understand, but she reaches for me. What else can I see? Like I was a man. Do. How y'all doing? Welcome in. There's exactly one person in here, and they are on YouTube. Let me see. Welcome in. Welcome in. I'm in a singing mood, I swear. I love singing. I wish I was better at it. I really enjoy doing it. Quite a bit. That's the wrong one. This is the wrong one. So we're going to have to switch that to the right one. Welcome in. Welcome. No, there's no one to welcome in. No one's here. That's what happens when you start the show an hour late, Taylor. Welcome in. Welcome in. Hello. I'm over here sharing on Twitter. Trying to do it via YouTube this time. Welcome in. Oh. Yep, can't do that right now. The live was paused. All right, welcome in, y'all. Welcome in. I have shared on Twitter and Facebook. So now, let's close that. And let's get going. Welcome in. Welcome to Reading What Miss Taylor Said. My name is Taylor. I'm also Miss Taylor Said, and I started this show on November 30th of 2020 in an effort to accomplish a few goals. One of those goals being that I would like to actually finish the books that I own. I've collected a lot of books over the years, and I would like to actually read all of them. And this is a great way for me to do it. I like sharing with people. I like reading aloud for other people. So I might as well read these books aloud to y'all. The first reason why I started reading what Miss Taylor said. The second reason why I started reading what Miss Taylor said is because the things that I want to do are going to require me to read off of things, read cue cards, teleprompters, speeches, scripts. I'm going to be reading all kinds of things, and I want to be able to hone in on those skills of reading aloud in front of an audience and sharpen those skills for myself. So I started the show I started the show additionally to do that. The third reason why I started the show is because I want to get back into public speaking. It's something that I used to do when I was in high school and college, and I got away from it during most of my 20s, and I'm turning 30 this year, and I want to get back into the public speaking space because it is my absolute favorite thing to do, is to get in front of people and talk about my experiences, share information, and uplift people. So I'm thankful to be able to do this. I'm thankful for everyone that shows up and everyone that watches. And let's get back into reading what Miss Taylor said. First of all, I just want to say that with all the craziness that's been happening around me lately, I did not do the homework that I assigned. Ain't that something? I am something else. I truly am, because I meant to, and then craziness in life happened. So I did not get to it. I got this lip balm from my friend, y'all, and it has a flower in it, and I think that's pretty darn cool. Like, look, it has a flower in it. That is pretty cool. Has nothing to do with anything, but I thought it was pretty cool. Thank you all for watching. Let's go ahead and get back into our book. We are reading Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. The last thing we left off on, we are in chapter 5, and we're talking about how different children react to emotionally immature parents. The last thing we left off on was an assessment. If you have not seen the previous episodes of Reading Miss Taylor Said, wherever you're watching, you can literally go to the page and go to the last episode. At the end of the episode, there was an assessment that you could do to find out what kind of child you were, or not what kind of child you were, but identifying your healing fantasy and role self. And now we're going to get into the two styles of coping with emotionally immature parents. So the different role selves that you take on as a child. Okay, let me drink some water, and then we'll be right up in there. Ooh, I am very relaxed, y'all. As you can probably see, I'm extremely relaxed. And today is not going to be a high energy day because I needed to relax. So, just so y'all know, welcome in. We're about to start reading. We are reading Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. And the section we're going into is called Two Styles of Coping with Emotionally Immature Parents. Healing fantasies and role selves are as unique as the children who invent them. But overall, children with emotionally immature parents cope with emotional deprivation in one of two ways, either internalizing their problems or externalizing them. Children who are internalizers believe it's up to them to change things, whereas externalizers expect others to do it for them. In some circumstances, a child might hold both beliefs, but most children primarily adopt one coping style or the other as they struggle to get their needs met. Which style you've adopted is probably more a matter of personality and constitution than choice. And ultimately, both styles are an attempt to get needs met. As people move through life, they may go through periods of being more internalizing or externalizing, but their basic nature is likely to lean more one way than the other. However, the ideal is to balance these two approaches so that internalizers learn to seek help externally from others and externalizers learn to look inside themselves for control. Ooh, I'm an internalizer. I know that. Internalizers are mentally active and love to learn things. They try to solve problems from the inside out by being self reflective and trying to learn from their mistakes. They're sensitive and try to understand cause and effect. Seeing life as an opportunity to develop themselves, they enjoy becoming more competent. They believe they can make things better by trying harder, and they instinctively take responsibility for solving problems on their own. Their main sources of anxiety are feeling guilty when they displease others and the fear of being exposed as imposters. Ooh, this sounds like most of my peers. Their biggest relationship downfall is being overly self-sacrificing and then becoming resentful of how much they do for others. My God. Woo, that was a read. I told you as soon as they gave those brief descriptions at the top. I'm an internalizer. That is me. This might as well say Venus and Virgo. That might as well say me. That might as well say this is Taylor. Externalizers is the next section. The next type. Externalizers take action before they think about things. They're reactive and do things impulsively to blow off anxiety quickly. They tend not to be self-reflective, assigning blame to other people and circumstances rather than their own actions. They experience life as a process of trial and error, but rarely use their mistakes to learn how to do better in the future. They're firmly attached to the notion that things need to change in the outside world in order for them to be happy, believing that if only other people would give them what they want, their problems would be solved. Their coping style is frequently so self-defeating and disruptive that other people have to step in to repair the damage from their impulsive actions. Externalizers feel that competent people owe them help and tend to believe that good things have come to other people rather unfairly. Regarding self-image, they either have very low self-confidence or a sense of inflated superiority. Ooh. They depend on external soothing, which makes them susceptible to substance abuse, addictive relationships, and many forms of immediate gratification. Their main source of anxiety is that they will be cut off from the external sources their security depends upon. Their biggest relationship problems include being attracted to impulsive people and being overly dependent on others for support and stability. Whew. Literally, like the internalizers are some of my siblings and myself, and the externalizers are the rest, are like my other siblings. It's so crazy because it's not even like that makes them a bad person. They just externalized it. And they're not bad because of it. It's just that they're responding to the trauma of having an emotionally immature parent. Which is why it's like, even though like my response was be overachieving, overthinking, like be like the golden child and all that stuff, like my trauma response was to be a golden child. And some of my siblings, their trauma response was to like externalize it and be like, you know what, this ain't on me, this is on you. Y'all did this. And I'm just a result of what y'all did, which is the truth. And it's just like, y'all owe me for what you didn't give me when I needed you to. And it's fair. It's fair. It's a fair reaction. Woo. Okay. and this is the next section, is called Understanding the Externalizer's Worldview. It's hard to know which coping style has it worse. Internalizers certainly suffer more consciously, but their tendency to blame themselves has the silver lining of eliciting reassurance and support from others. In contrast, externalizers engage in behaviors that exasperate and anger others. So when they need help, others typically want to keep their distance. However, externalizers usually keep acting up until somebody steps in to help them. Conversely, internalizers may suffer in silence and continue to look just fine, even as they're breaking down inside. Often, people don't offer internalizers assistance because they don't realize they need it. It doesn't make them better, though. It doesn't make them better people. This book will probably appeal mostly to people who are internalizers because it's designed to help people understand themselves and others, which typically isn't a strong interest of externalizers. Welcome in. Ooh, hey, baby sis. Ooh, girl. We're in a really good part. We're in a really good part. Reading Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. Okay. So let's see. This book will probably appeal most to people who are internalizers because it's designed to help people understand themselves and others, which typically isn't a strong interest of externalizers. Still, it's important for internalizers to understand the worldview of externalizers in order to deal with them more effectively, especially because most emotionally immature parents are externalizers and struggle against reality rather than coping with it. They blame the outside world for their problems as if reality were at fault. If you think this sounds like the behavior of a young child, you're exactly right. Hey. Externalizing keeps people from growing psychologically and is therefore associated with emotional immaturity. Internalizing, on the other hand, promotes psychological development through the use of self-reflection. But I'll cover internalizers in depth in chapter 6. The rest of this chapter discusses various aspects of externalizing. So externalizers create a vicious cycle of self-defeat. Externalizing tends to elicit punishment and rejection, in contrast to well-behaved internalizers. Externalizers act out their anxiety, pain, or depression. They do impulsive things to distract themselves from their immediate problems. Although this may help them feel better temporarily, it creates more problems down the road. When externalizers have to face the consequences of their impulsivity, oh gosh, I'm not saying this word right. Impulsivity, there we go. They're vulnerable to strong but brief feelings of shame and failure. However, they usually use denial to avoid shame rather than wondering whether or how they might need to change. So they usually use denial to avoid shame rather than wondering whether or how they might need to change. This lands them in a vicious cycle of impulsivity, followed by feelings of failure that prompt still more impulsivity. As a result, externalizers repeatedly feel brief bursts of low self-worth and a sense of being bad. To avoid total self-hatred, they rid themselves of shame by blaming others and making excuses. This strategy doesn't win them much sympathy, except among fellow externalizers. So they often end up without the emotional support they were seeking. Okay, so that's basically saying that people that cope with the emotional immaturity of their parents through externalizing, they will do impulsive things without regard to other people, and then deny it, lie about it, say they didn't do it or they didn't mean to do it or whatever to avoid the shame, and then will get really down on themselves, and they'll beat themselves up about what they did. So they just kind of like, oh, I never can get anything right. I can never do anything right. They do that thing, and then people either ignore them or give them sympathy, but it's usually the only people that give them sympathy are other people that do the same thing. And so then they get ignored because nobody wants to deal with trying to get them to understand that they emotionally are not there because they may not understand it because they're figuring it out, you know? And then they get into this I'm ashamed myself fest and I'm going to guilt myself fest. And then they end up just doing something else impulsive because they feel bad about, they do something else impulsive because they feel bad about what they did. And it starts that cycle. So that's the vicious cycle of self-defeat. The next one is called externalizers seek solutions outside themselves. Externalizers seek solutions outside themselves. I have a strong feeling this is going to mention religion and how it gets used as, oh, I'm gonna give it there. I'm gonna throw it out there. Let that be the thing to save me and not take responsibility for myself. I'm just guessing. I'm gonna take a guess that that's what they're talking about. Externalizers don't get a chance to grow or learn from mistakes because they expel stress as soon as it hits. Believing their problems need to be solved by someone else, they look to others to make them feel better, sometimes with a hint of resentment about not being helped sooner. You might picture them as always looking for an external power source to plug into, while internalizers have their batteries included. Of course, sometimes internalizers need a recharge, but they don't routinely make their problem someone else's issue. Left unchecked, an early externalizing coping style results in emotional immaturity. Most emotionally immature parents have an externalizing coping style because they're always looking outside themselves to feel better. Externalizers don't work to develop better self-control. They get overwhelmed by emotion and either deny the seriousness of their problems or blame other people. Externalizers think reality should conform to their wishes, whereas more mature people deal with reality and adapt to it. Externalizing in children promotes emotional dependency and enmeshment with the parents' dynamics. So, externalizing in children promotes emotional dependency and enmeshment with the parents' dynamics. Furthermore, emotionally immature parents may indulge in an externalizing child because doing so distracts them from their own unresolved issues. Oh man. Ooh. I'm just thinking about my own personal family and how the emotionally immature parent may indulge in externalizing child because doing so distracts them from their own unresolved issues. Because you pick the child that is the neediest and acts out. You pick the child that acts out the most, that needs to have constant attention because they're not internalizers, so they can't deal with this stuff on their own. They need help. But emotionally immature parent is just going to indulge them to feel needed because they know they can give small doses of perceived love and can give those small doses, and that'll be enough. It'll be like little band-aids to just go over the big deep wound that causes the externalizing child to externalize. But emotionally immature parent can give treatment but not the cure to the emotional wound that they cause, because this child is so needy and is not independent enough to go out, heal, and then come back and be like, yeah, boundary is being set and you're just going to be my parent. Thank you very much. I'm not going to be codependent on you for emotional gratification. Ooh, okay, I need some water on that. Good grief. I'm learning a lot right now. I love learning in here. Welcome back to Reading with Miss Taylor Said. We are on the road to 100. We're on the road to 100. This is episode 61. Episode 61. We're on the road to 100. I got to figure out what that date is. Okay. So, So let's see. Externalizing in children promotes emotional dependency and enmeshment with the parents' dynamics. I just read that. When dealing with an out of control child, parents don't have time to think about their own pain from the past. Instead, they can take on the role self of the strong parent, helping a weak, independent child who couldn't get along without them. Although externalizing children often struggle with behavioral problems, impulsivity, emotional volatility, and even addictions, these ways of acting out have the advantage of making their distress visible. See? Because they're not dealing with it on their own. So it's visible. Their distress is visible. Their pain doesn't stay unseen as it does with internalizers, though it may be misinterpreted as defiance, opposition, or senseless troublemaking. So that's when you got parents that are just like, he just bad. He just bad. He's just bad. No, he's externalizing. He's externalizing where you're falling short or where you aren't available to them. Like, that's what's happening. And that's not a shot at, like, that's not a shot or anything. That's just the reality of what's happening. That's the reality of what's happening. It is not, it's like, it upsets me when people just write kids off as bad. It really bothers me because it's just like, that child only knows what they know. And they only know what they know from the people that they're around. So if there's something that they're missing or something that they need or some sort of stress that they're under, they're going to mimic that stress. They're going to take on that stress. And then they're going to act out because of that stress. And then they get called bad, but it's just like, no, they're not bad. They just don't know. Like, they just genuinely don't know. Having a sister that's an externalizer and I myself internalize things, that creates a terrible environment for everyone. Yeah, it makes it really hard when you live in a big family. Like, if you have more than one sibling, if stuff ain't sweet in the home, like, you're gonna have multiple siblings who have different coping mechanisms and coping styles. So you're going to have siblings that internalize, you're going to have siblings that externalize, and you're going to have to deal with everyone based on how they are and how they cope with things. It is amazing. I just would like to say that it's amazing, and I'm incredibly thankful that my last name is Cope and that I get to talk about stuff like this with this last name, with my first name being Taylor, my last name being Cope. It's just something special about that. Words mean things, you know, and that was not an accident that that's what my name ended up being. But it's these different coping mechanisms. It's like growing up in a house where you have different people acting out different things. That's a lot to process, yo. That's a lot to process. Like, sometimes I wonder what the thought process is when having lots of kids, like if the kids will get along fine, you know? Anyway, let's keep going. Externalizers exist along a continuum of severity. Externalizing exists along a continuum of severity. At the extreme end are predatory, sociopathic people who see others as resources to exploit with no regard for their rights or feelings. Milder or quieter externalizers can look like internalizers because they're so non-confrontational, but they can be identified by their belief that others should change. That said, milder externalizers may be amenable to growth and self-reflection as they get older. An example of a mild externalizer was a man who came to therapy because he frequently lost control when stressed and shouted at his wife and kids. He had been raised in a rigid family in which he was hit and humiliated if he made a mistake. So he had plenty of role models for externalizing behavior. However, because he sincerely wanted things to be better at home, he worked hard to accept his wife and children as sensitive people in their own right, who needed to be worked with rather than overpowered. Mild externalizers can show up in many forms. As mentioned on the surface, they may even seem to be internalizers. The key is whether they blame others for their unhappiness, as in the next story. So Rodney's story. Rodney's story is the next story. On the surface, Rodney seemed to be an empathic internalizer who tried to keep everybody happy. He allowed his wife Sasha to tell him what he could and couldn't do, giving her full veto power over his activities. He came to therapy because he was depressed and felt he had lost himself. He was afraid of making Sasha mad and never challenged her because he feared she would leave him. Outwardly, he declared himself responsible for his choices, but he secretly blamed Sasha for restricting his life. In true externalizing fashion, he saw her as controlling his happiness and unhappiness and felt that he wasn't free to do what he wanted without her permission. Ronnie had grown up with an overbearing mother, who didn't give him much real nurturance. And as an adult, he still saw himself in the role of an overpowered child, now controlled by Sasha. In one therapy session, he pictured himself as a prisoner, a man in chains, a highly externalizing image. Rodney's wasn't flamboyantly demanding like many externalizers, but just the same, he believed the solutions to his problems were up to someone else. Until he began to recognize this dynamic, he remained just as stuck in his problems as a more severe externalizer. Fortunately, after being in therapy a while, Rodney saw what he'd been doing and began to speak up for himself. Sasha had no idea he was so upset. She had simply been taking the lead because Rodney never expressed his wishes. I've been that before. I've been an externalizer in that sense before, where I think that where I basically allow someone to have control over me without them saying that they wanted it. Welcome in. We are reading Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents Love. So I externalized on them because it was like I made it their problem that I was seeking permission from them, even though they never asked me to seek permission for stuff. It was just kind of like, these are the things I don't really care for you doing. And these are the things that, and originally it's crazy because it's like originally there was no permission or non-permission. And then there were conflicts that made it so that boundaries needed to be set, but because no one was really good at setting boundaries, it became a thing of, well, I don't want you doing this, you're doing that, rather than saying, when you do this, it makes me feel like this, so can we find a way for those two things to exist? No, we were young and we were just like, I don't like when you do that, so don't do that no more. And so then it was like I gave them that power to have a say-so in what I did and didn't do. If that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. But I externalized on them and gave them that power. What? There's a gas shortage, y'all. I mean, I don't drive, so that's not really an issue for me, but it could be because that's probably going to spike the price of Lyft. There's a gas shortage and there's going to be vehicle regulations. See, if we had just stayed our butt in the house, we wouldn't even be having this problem. Now we have a shortage of things because they wanted everybody to be outside. Lord. Ooh, we are truly creating a dystopian world. Don't mind me. Sorry about that. Anyway, I externalized and gave that person permission. Yeah, that notification just came through. Ooh, that is ugly. Mm. Shout out to the people that work from home and don't have to leave the house to go to work and don't have to commute. Shout out to the professional pedestrians. that line, that phrase came from a rap song by somebody I knew. Yeah. Okay, let's get back into the book. Ooh. This one's going to be a tough one. Ooh. This one is going to be a tough one. All right. Trigger warning. Abusive siblings. Trigger warning. Different kinds of abusive siblings. So, just so y'all know, trigger warning. Externalizers can be abusive siblings. Many of my clients who are internalizers have lived with out of control externalizing siblings. These clients all had the same situation. A predatory, indulged sibling, whether older or younger, made life miserable for them as children while their parents did nothing to intervene. I'm so sorry. If the sibling was bored or upset, he or she took it out on the client. Their parents often saw the externalizing siblings as special in some way and let them get away with all kinds of bad behavior. In some cases, this even took the form of sexual abuse, which my clients either didn't report because they thought their parents wouldn't believe them, or did report only to have their parents defend the abusive sibling. Let me give y'all a moment. Externalizing siblings can also perpetuate emotional abuse, ruling the family with their troubles and tantrums. While the internalizers felt like they couldn't get away with anything, their externalizing siblings were let off the hook repeatedly. Emotionally immature parents often placate or rescue externalizing children. Often this seems like the only solution because the externalizers keep making impulsive choices that make their lives unmanageable. In a family with an externalizing sibling, the parent's attitude is often to silence any complaints of unfairness by the internalizer, telling the child to try to get along or to understand the sibling's problem. For the parent, nothing is worth getting a kid who externalizes upset. The message to internalizers is that they should put their needs on the back burner and instead focus on what the externalizer needs. Externalizers are also prone to wrongly accusing others of abuse, presenting themselves as the wronged victim who needs special attention. One innocent woman was shocked when her younger brother, an externalizer, accused her of sexually abusing him in childhood. When he was little, she had sacrificed much of her teen life taking care of him because her parents were focused on a chronically ill grandparent. Her brother's unfounded accusation fit his pattern of casting about for external reasons why he couldn't manage his life. Their parents sided with him immediately, even after my client swore that nothing had happened. The roles her parents and brother played as rescuers and hapless victim were too well established for the facts to have a bearing. Woo! Whew. Y'all know y'all got that one sibling that turned the function up for no reason. For no reason at all. Because they don't know how to internalize. They don't know how to process internally. They process externally. And then you gotta worry about them. You gotta worry about they gonna start some shit. You gotta worry about if they gonna be upset this time. If the conversation is gonna go right or wrong. You gotta worry about all kinds of stuff. You gotta worry about them and how they about to act. You really gotta sit there and contemplate and be like, bro, do I want to deal with this today? I really don't feel like dealing with this today. I'm gonna avoid them. You love them, they're your sibling. But if they be cutting up at the function, every function, literally have fought every person or started a fight with every person. Like, it's like the hardest part is that you know exactly why it's happening. You know exactly why. And depending on how they were treated by your parents, you can't like, and I would never say like I'm going to sit here and because I was about to say you can't blame them. Like there's nothing to blame. There's nothing to blame. They are reacting to what they were given in childhood. So you just kind of just be like, well, I don't know how to help you, but I know you need to get this out of your system. I'm going to take myself out of the line of danger because I know this is not even my problem. This is not even my issue. This is something between you and our parents. This is something between you and them and what they did and what they let happen to you and how they let things transpire like throughout your childhood. It has nothing to do with my relationship with you. It has nothing to do with even my relationship with our parents. It's your relationship with our parents. And so now like it's like that TikTok where it's just like I'm really attractive and I'm about to make it everyone's problem. It's just like you have unresolved trauma with our parents, and because you're an externalizer, you're about to make it everybody's problem. And because you're being bullied, especially if they're an older sibling doing it. I mean, it don't even matter if they're an older sibling or a younger sibling. Like they're being like a lot of times it's like if you're being bullied by your parent and you're put in a place of authority over younger siblings, it puts you in a position where it's really easy for you to bully your younger siblings. It's easy for you to bully your younger siblings. It's easy for you to bully your younger siblings. And I hate that air conditioning came on. I really hope it's not that loud. I always have to do this. I'll be right back, y'all. We only got a few minutes left in the show. Okay. But if your parent is bullying you, you don't have a place of refuge to go and escape. All you got is these younger siblings who are probably dependent on you at some point, because if parents aren't being their best selves or taking care of the oldest, if the oldest is having to externalize processing how the parents parent them, they're going to put the responsibility on that child to take care of the younger ones. They just are. It makes it really easy for you to have a mean older sibling who is resentful towards you just because they either see you get treated better, or they see that you don't have as much responsibility, or they are favored. It could be younger siblings too, because when younger siblings do it, it's because they're favored and they're treated special. And so they act out because it's just like, well, they give me what I want, so why aren't you giving me what I want, sibling? You know? So many kids. So many kids. Okay. So the next section is called the continuum of coping, mixed styles. That's kind of funny. That sounds like a album cover. Like that sounds like a book for me. Like a book about my life. The continuum of coping, mixed styles. Dun-dun-dun. Yeah. Anyway, it's funny because my last name's and I'm mixed. Anyway, like everything in human nature, personality characteristics don't occur in pure forms. Rather, any given trait exists along a continuum. Internalizing and externalizing occur on a spectrum, with the most severe examples of each differing profoundly from one another. Under the right conditions, each type can display behaviors and attitudes ordinarily associated with the other type. For instance, once externalizers hit rock bottom, they sometimes open up to the idea that they may need to change instead of expecting the world to adjust to them. And when under severe stress, some internalizers start reacting as impulsively as any externalizer. I've definitely done that before. So the next section is called Externalizers Can Become More Internalizing. Ultimately, externalizing and internalizing are just two sides of being human. Everyone can show more or less of either style depending on circumstances and where they fall on the continuum. That said, people who seek therapy or enjoy reading about self-help are far more likely to have an internalizing style of coping. Welcome. Here y'all are, listening to this show, watching this show. If you're here, you're likely an internalizer. You know what's funny? What's very funny, I know for a fact that on Facebook, I have a friend that has like 6 siblings. And then on Instagram, I have another friend that also has like 5, 6 siblings. I have 9 siblings. And we're all like of similar makeup, ethnically. It's very interesting. It's a big old coincidence. It has nothing to do with anything, but I just know that like we are the internalizer sisters of our individual families that are now here trying to heal. And so y'all are listening to me read a book because we are all, yep. So you have 7, she has 6, I have 9. And yes. And so we're all here trying to better ourselves, and internalizers, just being the internalizer sibling. Welcome in. If you're just now joining us for the first time, we're reading Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. Thank you very much. Now it has everything to do with it. We connected for a reason. That's right. That's right. Yes, ma'am. So, okay, let's keep going. So let's see. Ultimately, externalizing and internalizing are just two sides of being human. Everyone can show more or less of either side depending on circumstances and where they fall on the continuum. That said, people who seek therapy or enjoy reading about self-help are far more likely to have an internalizing style of coping. They are always trying to figure out what they can do to change their lives for the better. In contrast, people who externalize their problems are more likely to end up in treatment due to external pressures, such as courts, marital ultimatums, or rehab. Much of addiction recovery is geared towards nudging externalizers toward adopting a more internalizing coping style and taking responsibility for themselves. You could even think of groups like AA as a movement designed to turn externalizers into internalizers who become accountable for their own change. Yes. So an externalizer can be converted into an internalizer. You can today if you continue to watch Reading with MissTaylorSaid. The next section says internalizers can externalize when under stress. I've done that before in the low vibrational times of my life. I was an internalizer that super externalized, and I would freak the F out. It was terrible. On the other hand, internalizers can slip into externalizing when they get overly stressed or lonely. Yes. Sometimes overly self-sacrificing internalizers start acting out their distress through affairs or superficial sexual liaisons. They often feel tremendous shame and guilt about this and are terrified that they'll be found out, yet they're attracted to these liaisons as an escape from an emotionally or sexually barren life. Having an affair helps them feel alive and special again and offers the possibility of getting their needs for attention met outside of their primary relationship without rocking the boat. Most of the time, they try to talk to their partner about their unhappiness since their instinct is to take responsibility for solving problems. But if their partner doesn't listen to or doesn't listen, or worse, rebuffs these overtures, internalizers may go on the lookout for someone to save them. Ooh. A classic externalizer approach. Ooh, that one hit me right in my chest. Because, boy, I've done that before. Wow. Listen, it's giving Jack Dawson on Titanic. Just that right there, what was just described, it's giving Jack Dawson on the Titanic. Rose was an internalizing woman. She went to then externalize, was getting ready to jump off the boat and got saved by someone. And she let that man, she said, he saved me in every way a girl could be saved, because she externalized and was being impulsive for once in her life because everything she did in life was so rigid. And she reacted with externalizing. Titanic is a perfect example of this. All right. Anyway, sorry. I mean, there's so many other examples because this is a lot of movie plots, but that's the first one I thought of. Maybe this helps explain many midlife crises, wherein previously responsible people seem to reverse some of their values in surprising ways. They seem to suddenly reject obligations and responsibilities as they seek a more personally rewarding life. But in light of the typical internalizer profile, perhaps the midlife metamorphosis isn't so sudden or surprising after all. Maybe it's a result of years of self-denial, followed by internalizers' realization that other people's needs have come first way too many times. Substance abuse is another way that internalizers can adopt an externalizing solution under stress, as you can see in the following story. Ron's story. Ron was a lifelong internalizer with chronic back pain who constantly tried to please his self-involved mother and critical boss. He originally came to therapy with an internalizer's perspective, looking for ways he could change his life. But as work stress increased and he began to feel the loneliness and lack of support in his life, he started externalizing by taking more pain medication and drinking more. Finally, Ron confessed to me that he thought he was going too far in abusing alcohol and pills, and shortly thereafter, he sought residential treatment to get his addiction under control. With specialized care, he was able to return to using his own inner coping as the way to solve his problems, rather than turning to the externalizing escape of drugs. It be happening, man. Let's see how much we have left. Well, we'll go a little over an hour and we'll finish this chapter. So we have another assessment. If y'all want to get some paper just to tally how many of these you match with. The exercise is identifying your coping style. This exercise, and I'm going to mark mine while we're doing it, because I already know what mine is, but I had a pencil that was sharpened. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to do this, right? So this exercise will help you identify whether you tend to be more of an internalizer or externalizer. If you like to use the checklist below to assess other people and see which coping style seems to characterize them, use the downloadable version of this exercise available at website. See the back of the book for instructions on how to access it. With the downloadable content, you'll also find a table for summarizing these traits. I'm gonna have to post these websites, y'all. You might want to print it out and keep it at hand so you can use it to quickly peg others' coping styles. Note that the attributes listed below lie at the extreme ends of the spectrum, accentuating the basic differences in how these two types approach life's challenges. As a reminder, in real life, people are likely to exist somewhere along a continuum for these traits. Still, most people will resemble one type more than the other. All right? So, externalizer traits. This is the first one. Approach to life. The first one under approach to life. Living in the present moment and not considering future consequences. Living in the present moment and not considering future consequences. Do you do that? Do you think thinking solutions come from the outside? Thinking solutions come from the outside. Looking to others to improve things. What should someone else do to make things better? You're always looking to others to improve things. What should someone else do to make things better? Put a check beside that, or mark that if that's something you do. Taking immediate action and thinking later. Taking immediate action and thinking later. And then the last one for approach to life for externalizer traits is underestimating difficulties. Underestimating difficulties. All right, the next section is called response to problems. So, are you reacting to whatever is going on? When you respond to problems, are you reacting to whatever is going on? When you respond to problems, are you viewing problems as someone else's fault? Are you viewing problems as someone else's fault? When you're responding to problems, are you blaming circumstances? Are you blaming the circumstances that you're in? When you're responding to your problems, are you getting others involved in their problems? Are you getting others involved, in your problems? Are you getting others involved in your problems? And when you're responding to problems, are you denying or escaping reality to feel better? Are you denying or escaping reality to feel better? For the psychological style, for people that may think they're externalizing, they have for externalizing traits. Are you being impulsive and self-focused? Are you being impulsive and self-focused? Are you believing emotions have a life of their own? Do you believe emotions have a life of their own? The psychological style for an externalizing trait, getting mad easily. Getting mad easily. And the last one in this section is having no interest in the inner psychological world. Having no interest in the inner psychological world. And the last section for this is relationship style. So the first one for relationship style for externalizing traits, expecting others to provide help. Expecting others to provide help. Thinking others should change to improve the situation. Thinking others should change to improve the situation. Expecting others to listen and tending to engage in monologue. Ooh, I've done this before. Expecting others to listen and tending to engage in monologue. And last, for the relationship style, demanding that others stop nagging. You demand that others stop nagging. All right. The next section is for internalizer traits. So if you think you might be an internalizer, you're going to check more than one of the things in each of these sections, okay? So approach to life for internalizers. Worrying about the future. Worrying about the future. Next one, thinking solutions start on the inside. Thinking solutions start on the inside. Being thoughtful and empathic. What can I do to make things better is the question that the internalizer is going to ask themselves. Being thoughtful and empathic. What can I do to make things better? Empathic. Would it be empathic or empathic? Because sympathetic, empathic, I don't know. Thinking about what could happen is the next one. Thinking about what could happen. And the last one is overestimating difficulties. Overestimating difficulties. Ooh. Yes. All right, so the response to problems for internalizers. The response to problems for internalizers. Trying to figure out what's going on. Trying to figure out what's going on. Looking for their role in causing a problem. What's my part in this? Looking for a role in causing the problem. What's my part in this? So trying to take responsibility for how you caused the problem. Welcome in. If you're just joining us, we're reading Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, and we're doing an assessment of the different coping styles in response to emotionally immature parents. So when responding to problems, internalizers, check this if you were engaging in self-reflection and taking responsibility. Engaging in self-reflection and taking responsibility. The next one is figuring out problems independently and working on them. Figuring out problems independently and working on them. And the last one for response to problems is dealing with reality as it is and being willing to change. Dealing with reality as it is and being willing to change. All right. The psychological style for an internalizer is thinking before acting. Thinking before acting. Is that something that you did or do? Believing emotions can be managed. Believing emotions can be managed. Feeling guilty easily. Feeling guilty easily. Ooh, careful. Finding the inner psychological world fascinating. Finding the inner psychological world fascinating. Relationship styles. So the last one for figuring out if you have these internalizer traits is the relationship style. First one says thinking about what others need first. Internalizers are always thinking about what others need first. Considering changing self to improve the situation. You don't want to do that. Considering changing themselves to improve the situation. Requesting dialogue about a problem. Requesting dialogue about a problem. Wanting to help others understand why there's a problem. Wanting to help others understand why there's a problem. If your results indicate that you're primarily an internalizer, you may feel exhausted from trying to do too much of the emotional work in your relationships. The next chapter will explore the internalizing characteristics that prompt you to do too much for others. If, on the other hand, your results indicate you're primarily an internalizer, you might want to ask others for feedback on how you're coming across. You may be wearing out your support systems. We're almost done with this chapter, y'all, and then we're going to go on to chapter 6 tomorrow. I'm excited. Balance is the key. People who fall at the extremes of either coping style usually have significant problems in living. Extreme externalizers tend to develop physical symptoms or get in trouble with their behavior, while extreme internalizers are prone to emotional symptoms like anxiety or depression. If you review the checklist in the preceding exercise, you'll see that any of the traits could be a benefit or a liability depending on the circumstances. For instance, you see that internalizers could develop self-defeating tendencies toward inaction, not speaking up, and avoiding asking for help. Conversely, although externalizers may find their life a mess, their impulsive style often makes them more willing to take action and try different solutions. Sometimes that kind of impetuousness is exactly what's needed. So in some situations, it can be a strength. Under the right conditions, each style might be useful. Ultimately, problems tend to arise when people get stuck at the extreme of either coping style. Still, the overall externalizer profile does reflect a personality that's generally more unrealistic and less adaptive. This is because the extreme externalizers' immature coping mechanisms simply don't work well for successful relationships, nor do they promote mature psychological development. The summary of this chapter, it says children have different ways of reacting to emotionally immature parenting, but they all develop subconscious healing fantasies about how things could get better. If a child's true self isn't accepted, the child will also adopt a role self as a way of having a valuable part to play in the family. In addition, children develop two main coping styles in response to emotionally immature parenting: internalizing and externalizing, or externalizing, excuse me. Externalizers think the solutions to their problems will come from outside themselves, while internalizers tend to look within themselves to solve problems. Either style might be advantageous in the moment, but internalizing is far less likely to create conflict or subject others to hardship. Instead, the internalizer's difficulties are much more likely to result in inner distress. In the next chapter, we'll take an in-depth look at the internalizing style. You'll see how the childhood healing fantasies of internalizers can trap them in self-defeating roles and how recovering their true self can free them again. Oh, I'm so excited for the next chapter. I am so excited for the next chapter because, wow, I need it. You need it. We all need it. That's why we're here, because we're the internalizers. Okay. And we definitely need it, because what do I always say? All I'm trying to do is help us be our very best selves. I want you to be the youest you that you can possibly be. I want you to be the youest you that you can possibly be. And that's all I'm trying to do with MissTaylorSaid. I appreciate y'all being here. I appreciate y'all showing up. We went a little over an hour, but it's all good. If you're just coming in, the playback is about to be up in just a moment. And we had a great section tonight on the different coping styles of children that have emotionally immature parents. You can either be you're usually either an internalizer or an externalizer, but a lot of times we have a fusion of both. And so, she said, guess I need to be more accountable and be here on time every time, because this is necessary. We're working on it. And the thing is, don't put pressure on yourself to be here when it's live. Don't put pressure. I mean, I know that part is great for engaging in the conversation, but I don't ever want anybody to feel pressure to be here right on time, because shit, I ain't even here on time. What? I started almost an hour late. I'm not putting pressure on myself because I want the energy to be right. I want the energy to be right whenever I'm coming up here to deliver this to y'all. And I want y'all's energy to be open to receiving the message when you're watching it. So if you got to wait until the playback because it's overwhelming to get that information and not be able to pause it, hey, do what you have to do for your wellness, for your safety, for your mental well-being. Okay? No pressure. We out here just trying to heal. And we're going to have grace for ourselves. We're going to have grace for ourselves. We're going to be kind to ourselves. We're going to love on ourselves. We are going to treat ourselves with kindness because that's what we deserve. Okay? So don't be hard on yourself at all. These episodes ain't going nowhere. They about to be right up here, right as soon as we get off. All right? I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Episode 61 down. It's hard to receive. It'd be hard to receive. I know. Girl, listen, I'm the one reading it. I'll be here. I'll be the one reading it. But episode 61 down, we are on the road to 100. We are going to get to 100 episodes in 10 weeks, to episode 100 in 10 weeks, y'all. That is the goal. 4 episodes a week, 10 weeks. Got 39 left. This is exciting. Thank you guys for being here. I will see y'all tomorrow, 6-ish, within the hour of 6 and 7. I ain't even going to hold you. I'll see y'all tomorrow. I hope y'all have a great night. Thank you for tagging Kev on stage. Tag him in the comments after we get out of here, since they don't save the live comments. Also, y'all, send this to Kev on stage. Tag him, share it. Tag him, whatever, I mean, I'm not saying spam him, but we still trying to get me in front of his face, okay? We're trying to get reading what MissTaylorSaid in front of his face. I hope y'all have a great night. I need to get out of here for real, because we got some more I had some more content to make, and I have some more stuff to work on. So thank you guys for being here. Love y'all. I hope y'all have a great night. Bye. Bye, y'all. See ya. And last but not least, 2 people on YouTube. Okay, hey. How you doing? What y'all doing? How y'all doing over there? It's usually only 1, but now we got 2. Well, see y'all tomorrow. Bye.